Chapter 1. The Marriage in Fire. The church stood silent beneath the storm. Thunder rolled over the marble dome, and flashes of lightning illuminated the aisle where Elias Varon, the infamous Mafia emperor, stood bound not by chains but by vows. His sharp black suit clung to his frame, silver cufflinks gleaming like blades. His expression was unreadable, carved from ice. Across him, Harry Stewart, the youngest alpha business magnate in the city, adjusted his tie with trembling hands. Not from fear, but from the weight of finally getting what he had chased for years. "Sign it," Harry said quietly, sliding the marriage certificate across the altar, the ink still fresh. "Before the world tears you apart." Elias's lips curved into a cruel smile. "You call this saving me? This is entrapment." "Call it whatever you want," Harry murmured, eyes burning. "You're mine now." 1,000 whispers echoed from the gathered witnesses, half of them Harry's men, the other half Elias's enemies, forced to attend. It wasn't a wedding. It was a power exchange sealed in velvet and blood. When the priest's trembling voice declared them husband and husband, thunder cracked again. Somewhere outside, one of Elias's enemies was being executed a wedding gift from Harry. Hours later, the mansion burned with celebration. Expensive wine, golden lights, and a sea of people pretending to smile. Elias sat still on the throne-like chair at the center, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His dark eyes swept over the crowd before landing on his new spouse Harry, the man who'd brought him both ruin and salvation. "You look like you regret it already," Elias said as Harry approached. Harry leaned closer, his voice low. "I'd regret not having you, Elias." Elias's gaze flickered, emotionless. "You think possession is love?" Harry's breath hitched, and for a fleeting second his mask cracked. "I think losing you would kill me. That's enough reason to call it love." Elias laughed softly, cruelly. "You alphas are all the same. You want what you can't control." He rose and walked away, leaving Harry standing there with the sound of his heartbeat echoing in his ears. A month later, despite the cold start, the mansion began to change. Elias still worked with the same ruthless precision, but now his evenings were quieter. Shared dinners, faint arguments, and accidental brushes of hands that lingered longer than they should. Harry never touched Elias without permission, but his gaze always followed him, burning, longing, worshipping. Every night when Elias thought he was asleep, Harry would press a soft kiss on his hand before leaving the room. Elias never mentioned it, but his heart began to tremble in ways he didn't understand. Lucien Hart, his loyal right hand and childhood sweetheart, noticed. "You're smiling more these days," Lucien teased one evening, standing in Elias's office, handing him a glass of red wine. "Don't tell me marriage suits you." Elias scoffed, swirling his drink. "Marriage is just another business contract, Lucien." Lucien smiled faintly, though jealousy flashed in his eyes. "Business contracts don't make you stare at someone when they're not looking." Elias froze. "You're imagining things." Lucien leaned closer, his voice honeyed and low. "You've changed, Elias. That alpha is dangerous. Don't let him make you forget who you are." Elias turned away. "Harry isn't dangerous." Lucien's smile sharpened. "That's what I was afraid you'd say." 2 months later. The shift was subtle, almost invisible. Elias found himself waiting for Harry to come home at night, pretending to be asleep just to feel the bed dip under his weight. He started to notice Harry's small habits, the way he loosened his tie first, the faint cologne he wore, the quiet sigh he made before turning off the lamp. He told himself it wasn't love, it was gratitude. Harry had saved him when the underworld wanted his throne, sacrificing his reputation, his company, his peace. "He owes him," Elias repeated in his mind. "He's just grateful." But every time Harry smiled at him like he was something divine, Elias's chest ached. One night, Harry came home late, his shirt stained with blood. Elias's usual composure cracked. "What happened?" he demanded, standing from the bed. Harry shrugged, wiping his hands. "You're safe. That's all that matters." "You killed for me again?" Elias snapped. "I didn't ask you to." You never have to ask, Harry interrupted, voice trembling with emotion. I'd burn the world before I let it touch you. Elias's heart thundered. For the first time, he saw not the obsessed alpha, but the man beneath. He stepped closer, hand brushing Harry's jaw. You're a fool, Harry Stewart. Harry smiled faintly. Maybe, but I'm your fool. Lucien watched from the shadows. Every glance between them twisted his heart like a knife. Elias's laughter, something he hadn't heard in years now, belonged to another man. So Lucien began to whisper poison into the cracks of their fragile bond. Harry's been meeting with your rivals. He's planning something. Haven't you noticed how he keeps secrets? He's using you, Elias. You'll lose everything. Elias brushed him off at first, but seeds of doubt had already been planted. Harry, desperate to surprise Elias with a plan to protect his empire, unknowingly gave Lucien more ammunition, disappearing for days, without explanation. And soon, the fire that began with passion started to turn into the flames of misunderstanding. A storm mirrored their love, beautiful, chaotic, consuming. Elias stood by the window one night, staring at the rain, while Harry approached from behind. Do you hate me? Harry asked softly. Elias didn't turn around. I don't know what I feel anymore. Harry reached for his hand. Then let me show you. Their lips met hesitant, trembling, a collision of two worlds that should never have touched. For a brief second, everything melted: power, fear, pain, leaving only the taste of desperate affection. But outside, in the darkness, Lucien watched them through the window, his reflection splitting in the rain. If I can't have you, Elias, he whispered, no one will. And thus began the tragedy that would destroy them both, and lead to a rebirth neither of them expected. Chapter 2. The Fall. The night Lucien died, the world went silent. It rained endlessly heavy, merciless drops that beat against the marble windows of Varon Manor. The thunder outside could not compare to the storm brewing inside Elias Varon's heart. Lucien Hart's lifeless body lay on a white sheet, cold and pale, a dagger buried in his chest, a dagger engraved with Harry Stewart's initials. The same dagger Elias had gifted his husband on their wedding day. Do you still deny it? Elias's voice was low, trembling with a madness he didn't yet understand. Harry stood before him in the dimly lit room, wrists bruised from the chains, his white shirt soaked with blood and rain. His golden eyes burned not with guilt but with pain. I didn't kill him, Harry said hoarsely. You know I wouldn't. Then why your dagger? Elias snapped, slamming his hand against the table. Why was your car seen near the docks where Lucien was last alive? Why were you missing that night, Harry? Harry's silence was heavy. He wanted to scream the truth that he'd been meeting with a secret informant to destroy the men threatening Elias's life. But every word he said, every explanation he offered, only sounded like another lie to the man who refused to believe him. For days, Elias refused to see reason. Grief turned to rage, and rage turned to cruelty. He locked Harry in their mansion's underground cell, a place once used for interrogating enemies. The walls echoed with the sound of rain and the painful breaths of the alpha he once claimed to love. Tell me the truth, Elias demanded again and again. Harry smiled bitterly. I already did. You killed him. I didn't. You loved me just to destroy me. Harry's laugh cracked like glass. You think so little of me, Elias? Even after everything? Elias's eyes burned with hate, but deep beneath that hate, something trembled. Something that refused to die, no matter how much he wanted it to. Days passed. Harry grew weaker, his skin pale, his once sharp features softened by exhaustion. But his eyes never lost their fire. And each time Elias came to question him, the silence between them grew heavier, sharper. It wasn't until the 10th day that Harry spoke again, his voice rough like broken glass. You know what's funny? He said quietly, leaning against the cold wall. I thought you'd at least know me by now. But I guess even love wasn't enough to make you see the truth. Elias froze, his heart twisting painfully at that word. Love. Harry continued. I spent years protecting you from people like Lucien, from the council, from your own enemies. But I guess I should have protected you from him too. Don't you dare speak his name, Elias growled. Harry smiled faintly. He was never your savior, Elias. He was your poison. Elias's hand shook, but his anger was blind. Enough. Harry looked up at him, defeated, yet heartbreakingly calm. You've already killed me the moment you stopped believing me. That night, the mansion burned again, this time with screams instead of celebration. Elias walked into the cell one last time, gun in hand. His face was wet with tears or rain, even he didn't know. Harry looked up weakly from where he sat on the floor, wrists bleeding. Are you here to free me? He whispered. Or finish me? Both, Elias said softly. You deserve neither life nor forgiveness. Harry chuckled bitterly. Maybe you're right. He didn't beg. He didn't cry. He only stared at Elias, the man he had loved more than his own soul, and smiled one last time. Elias Varone, he whispered, voice steady even as blood trickled down his lip. You've loved the wrong person all your life. And so did I. Elias's hand trembled on the trigger. If I ever get another chance, Harry continued, closing his eyes, I won't repeat this mistake. The gunshot echoed through the storm. And for the first time in years, Elias screamed. Days later, the mansion was silent again. Elias sat in the same cell where Harry had died, the gun cold in his hand. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't slept. The storm outside had passed, but the one inside him raged endlessly. It was Lucien's assistant who brought him the diary found hidden beneath the false floor of Lucien's office. Elias opened it without care, but the moment he began to read, his world shattered again. If Elias can't be mine, I'll destroy everything he loves, starting with that alpha. He doesn't deserve Elias's heart. I'll make him suffer until Elias realizes it. If I have to die for him to love me, I'll make my death worth it. The handwriting was Lucien's. Every word was confession and cruelty. Elias dropped the diary, shaking violently. No, no, no. He stumbled out of the room, rushing to the morgue where Lucien's body had been buried. But when the coffin was opened, it was empty. Lucien wasn't dead. He was very much alive, sipping wine in another city, surrounded by his men, perfectly unharmed. The corpse Elias had buried was a decoy, a setup so perfect that even the most careful eye couldn't tell. And when word reached Elias, he fell to his knees. The empire he had built crumbled overnight. His men turned against him, his reputation, his sanity, his love gone. He stared at Harry's portrait in his study, the one painted secretly by Harry himself, tucked away like a secret hope, and finally understood. Harry hadn't been his obsession. He had been his salvation. And Elias had destroyed the only person who had ever truly loved him. Lucien returned days later, pale with shock, upon finding Elias sitting by Harry's grave. Elias, Lucien whispered, you can't. But Elias didn't let him finish. His voice was calm, cold, broken. I loved the wrong person, he said, and I killed the right one. Lucien tried to grab his arm, tears falling. You can still... Elias smiled weakly. No, Lucien. I already followed him once. I'll follow him again. He pressed the barrel of the gun to his chest, the same gun he had used to kill Harry, and pulled the trigger before Lucien could stop him. Blood bloomed like a rose against his shirt. As Elias fell beside Harry's grave, rain began to fall once more, soft, forgiving, endless. That night, the city whispered about the fall of two great empires, the businessman and the Mafia king. But for the two men whose love was born of obsession and ended in regret, the heavens wept the hardest. Because love, Elias finally learned, was never about possession or power. It was about belief. And he had destroyed the one man who believed in him until the end. Chapter 3. The Rebirth. The first thing Harry Stewart felt when he opened his eyes was pain. a deep hollow ache in his chest, as if his heart had been torn out and forced back in. The second thing he felt was time. The sunlight that streamed through the window wasn't from the mansion he died in. The curtains were different. His desk was smaller, and the digital calendar on his phone showed a date he hadn't seen in years, 2 years before his marriage to Elias Varen. Harry sat up, trembling. No way! He pressed a hand over his racing heart, flashes of memory cutting through his mind's storm. The blood. Elias's voice screaming his name before everything went dark. Then nothing. Then this. Had he gone mad? Was this some cruel illusion? But as hours passed, the truth settled in his chest like a quiet thunder. He had been reborn. In his past life, Harry had ruined everything for love. He had crossed lines, destroyed boundaries, burned himself to keep Elias safe only to die in his hands. This time, he promised, things would be different. He would not chase the Enigma again. He would not kneel before someone who would never believe him. He buried himself in work, rebuilding his business empire with calm precision. Contracts, meetings, and stock mergers replaced sleepless nights and desperate longing. And for the first time, he felt peace. Or so he told himself. A year later, peace had a name: Rowan Hale. A sweet, bright-eyed Omega with a warm laugh and no interest in power or wealth. Rowan adored Harry, but never demanded anything more than honesty. Their engagement was simple, quiet, the opposite of everything Harry's life once was. You always seem lost in thought, Rowan said one morning, pouring coffee. Bad dreams again? Harry smiled faintly. They're just memories. Of what? Of someone I shouldn't remember, Harry murmured. He said it so softly that Rowan didn't ask again, but the ache in his chest lingered like an old scar that refused to heal. Meanwhile, somewhere across the city, Elias, Varen, woke up screaming. His dreams were full of blood and fire, of a man crying his name, of a gunshot echoing in the rain, of his own trembling hands stained red. Every night he saw the same scene, a man with golden eyes whispering, "If I ever get another chance," before fading into nothing. He didn't know who the man was. He didn't even know why he couldn't breathe every time he saw those eyes. His doctor called them nightmares, but his instincts, sharp, animalistic, told him otherwise. It wasn't a dream. It was a memory. Elias became restless. The more he tried to forget, the clearer the visions became. He'd catch glimpses of a familiar figure in the crowd, dark hair, the way he adjusted his cufflinks, the calm, confident walk. Until one day at a business conference, he saw him. Harry Stewart. Alive. Smiling. Standing under the golden lights of the banquet hall, with an Omega by his side. Elias's heart stopped. That face, that smile, those eyes. He didn't know his name, but his soul remembered. Mr. Varen, one of his men whispered. That's Harry Stewart, the CEO of Stewart Enterprises. Elias's gaze darkened. Harry? The name rolled off his tongue like something he'd whispered 1,000 times before. And the moment Harry turned, their eyes met. It was only a second, but the world tilted. Harry froze, breath catching in his throat. Elias. He looked younger, calmer, yet the same dangerous aura wrapped around him like smoke. Their eyes locked across the room, Alpha and Enigma, past and present colliding in silence. Harry's chest ached so hard he almost forgot to breathe. He turned away first. He couldn't do this again. Not with the man who'd killed him once, even if this version didn't remember. But fate was cruel. Days later, Elias showed up at Harry's office under the pretext of a business collaboration. He was colder, calmer, yet his eyes never left Harry's face, as if trying to remember where he'd seen him before. Mr. Stewart, Elias said, voice smooth and controlled. I heard you're recently engaged. Congratulations. Harry's polite smile didn't reach his eyes. Thank you. I didn't know the infamous Varen group took interest in congratulatory visits. Elias smirked. I take interest in what intrigues me. Harry stiffened. And what intrigues you, Mr. Varen? You. The word dropped like a blade. Harry's breath faltered, memories of pain and gunfire flashing in his mind. He forced a chuckle. You flatter easily. Elias leaned closer, his cologne sharp and intoxicating. You make it sound as if we've met before. Harry stepped back. We haven't. And I'd like to keep it that way. Elias smiled, but it wasn't kind. It was hungry. Then why do I feel like I've lost you once already? From that day, Elias couldn't stay away. He sent flowers to Harry's office, appeared at events he wasn't invited to, offered business deals Harry couldn't afford to reject. Harry tried to ignore him, but every encounter stirred something dangerous inside him: anger, fear, longing. One night, after a particularly tense gala, Elias cornered him in the empty corridor. Why do you avoid me? Elias demanded. Harry turned sharply. Because you're dangerous. Then why does it hurt when you say that? Elias's voice trembled, a mix of confusion and obsession. Why do I feel like I've already broken you before? Harry's heart stopped. You have no idea. Elias took another step closer. Then tell me. Tell me what I've done to make you hate me so much. Harry's hands clenched at his sides. You wouldn't believe me even if I did. Try me. Harry met his gaze, eyes dark. You killed me once. Elias froze. The silence between them stretched heavy, suffocating, electric. Harry's voice was low, trembling but strong. You destroyed everything I loved, and I died hating you. Elias's eyes widened, flashes of forgotten memories bleeding through gunshots, tears, blood, a whisper. You've loved the wrong person all your life. He staggered back, clutching his head as fragments of his past life began to resurface. Harry didn't wait. He turned and walked away, leaving Elias trembling in the corridor, haunted and shaking. That night, Elias dreamed again. Only this time, he saw clearly the wedding, the rain, the gun, and Harry's last words. He woke up gasping. Harry, he whispered, I killed you. Days turned into weeks. Elias's obsession grew darker, heavier, almost desperate. He began showing up wherever Harry went, silent, possessive, burning with guilt and need. He didn't understand why he wanted to protect the man he once destroyed, but his heart refused to let go. And Harry, no matter how much he denied it, could feel his resolve weakening. Every glance, every word, every memory was a cruel reminder that no matter how many lives he lived, his soul was bound to Elias Varone. Chapter 4. The Tables Turns. The ballroom glittered under the chandelier's golden rain. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft hum of celebration filled the air as Harry Stewart stood beside his fiancée, Rowan Hale, a gentle Omega with kind eyes and a steady heart. For the first time in what felt like lifetimes, Harry was at peace. His past obsession with Elias Varone had long been buried beneath ambition, work, and quiet mornings spent planning a future free of blood and heartbreak. But peace was a fragile illusion. Because when the doors of the grand hall burst open and a storm of darkness walked in wearing a tailored black suit, the illusion shattered into dust. Elias Varone. The once feared Mafia king now stood with eyes burning like embers, his presence devouring every ounce of light from the room. Guests froze. Whispers spread like wildfire, and Rowan's trembling hand clutched Harry's. Harry Stewart, Elias's voice boomed, cold yet trembling with unspoken hunger. Did you really think you could belong to someone else? Harry's jaw clenched. You have no right to call me that. Elias's lips curved, dangerous and soft, a contradiction that tore open old wounds. I have every right. You are mine, Harry. You always were. The crowd gasped as Elias strode forward, his men blocking every exit. Rowan stepped in front of Harry, his courage wavering. Mr. Varone, please. This is a private event. Elias's eyes cut through him like a blade. And you're touching what's mine. He reached for Harry's wrist. Harry pulled back, his voice rising. Don't you dare touch me. You lost that right long ago. Elias froze. The venom in Harry's words burned deeper than any bullet. Because it wasn't just anger, it was pain. A pain that Elias didn't understand but felt like a phantom wound carved into his soul. And for nights before this moment, he had been dreaming of fire, of blood, of Harry's lifeless body in his arms. He didn't know why he remembered those dreams so vividly, why they felt more like memories than imagination. But every time he saw Harry smile at someone else, a suffocating panic clawed through his chest. Elias didn't understand his obsession. He only knew that losing Harry again felt impossible. The confrontation ended in chaos. Security was called. The engagement party was ruined. And the next day, headlines screamed about the Mafia boss's violent outburst at the wedding of a businessman. But Harry didn't care about the gossip. What haunted him was Elias's eyes that night, wild, desperate, and lost. Weeks passed. Elias began his hunt in silence. No threats this time, just an unyielding presence that followed Harry everywhere. Business meetings, late-night drives, even at his favorite cafe, Elias appeared like a shadow carved from regret. "Go away," Harry hissed one night when he found Elias waiting by his car. "I can't," Elias admitted quietly, his voice raw. "I don't know why, but I can't." "You don't know why?" Harry laughed bitterly. "You ruined my life once, Elias. Isn't that enough?" Elias didn't move. "Maybe that's why I can't leave. Maybe I'm here to make it right this time." Harry didn't believe him. He didn't want to, but every time Elias looked at him with that strange, broken reverence, something in Harry's chest twisted painfully. And then Lucian returned. Alive, smiling, dressed in white. The ghost that started everything walked back into their lives as if nothing had happened. Only this time, Lucian's eyes were sharper, his words colder. "You thought death could keep me away, Elias?" he whispered one night when Elias confronted him. "Funny, I thought you'd miss me more." But when Lucian's gaze turned toward Harry, all pretenses faded. "He's still in your way, isn't he? Just like before." Elias's blood ran cold. Because in that instant, memories flooded back. Harry's last breath, his final whisper. "You loved the wrong person, Elias." Lucien's betrayal, his lies, his schemes. And then Harry's body in his arms. Elias staggered, gripping his head as memories of his past life collided violently with the present. The pain was unbearable, but not as unbearable as the guilt that followed. He remembered everything. The way Harry had loved him. The way Harry had protected him even in death. The way he, blinded by false love, had destroyed the only person who had truly been his home. When he finally lifted his head, tears lined his sharp eyes. "No more," he whispered. Lucien sneered. "You'll regret turning on me again." "No," Elias said, his voice shaking with fury and resolve. "The only thing I regret is not protecting him." That night, Elias stood outside Harry's mansion watching the Alpha sleep through the window. His chest ached with something fierce and uncontainable. "I failed you once," he murmured softly into the night. "Not this time." His voice broke as he whispered, "I'll love you as fiercely as you deserved, even if it takes me a lifetime to earn your forgiveness." And under the pale moonlight, the hunter who once destroyed his prey knelt before the one he had wronged, ready to become his shield, his guardian, and his redemption. Because this time, Elias Varone would not let the world or his own darkness harm his Alpha. Chapter 5. The Crimson Vows. It had been 1 month since Elias remembered everything: his crimes, his sins, and the love he had destroyed with his own hands. Now, he refused to leave Harry's side. Everywhere Harry went, Elias followed quietly, never demanding, never forcing, just there. He'd bring coffee to his office, wait outside meetings, and even sleep on the couch of Harry's penthouse when allowed. He never touched him without permission, never crossed a line. Harry tried to ignore him at first, tried to tell himself that he didn't care. But every time he saw Elias bandage his own hand after training, every time Elias shielded him from threats, the walls around Harry's heart trembled, if only slightly. But peace never lasted long in their world. One evening, as the city drowned in rain, Lucien returned one last time. He wasn't the charming ghost from before. He was wild, desperate, and armed with nothing but vengeance. "If I can't have you," Lucien hissed, eyes flashing with madness. Then no one will. The gunshot came too fast. Harry froze until Elias threw himself in front of him. The bullet tore through Elias's shoulder, his blood splattering across Harry's shirt. Elias! Pain ripped through Harry's voice as he caught the Enigma in his arms. Elias still managed a smirk despite the blood staining his lips. I told you. I'd protect you this time. Lucien raised his gun again, but Elias moved first. Despite the wound, he lunged, disarming him in seconds. They fought brutal, relentless, soaked in blood and rain. When it ended, Lucien lay on the floor dead, a crimson bloom spreading beneath him. Elias dropped the weapon, his knees buckling. Harry caught him again, trembling. Stay with me, you idiot! Why would you? Because. Elias's voice was hoarse, his eyes fluttering shut. I love you. Harry didn't remember how he got Elias to his private hospital. He only remembered the flashing lights, the smell of antiseptic, and his hands shaking, stained red, refusing to let go. Elias survived, but barely. The first few weeks were brutal sleepless nights, endless fevers, and the constant fear that one wrong moment would steal him away again. Harry never left his side. He didn't plan to. He fed him, cleaned his wounds, and even yelled at him for trying to get up too soon. When Elias weakly smiled at him one morning, Harry snapped, Don't you dare smile like that. You almost died, idiot. But his tears betrayed him. Elias simply reached out slowly, gently, and brushed away one tear with his trembling hand. You cried for me. Harry turned away, whispering, Don't make it sound like I care. But they both knew he did. Days turned into months. Elias healed not just physically, but in spirit. He didn't demand forgiveness. He earned it, day by day. He stopped hiding behind arrogance. He spoke softly, listened more, and rebuilt the bridge between them one quiet gesture at a time. It took 2 years. 2 years of patience. 2 years of redemption. 2 years of slow smiles and unspoken healing. And one night, when the stars shimmered above their balcony, Elias knelt before Harry not as the Mafia king, not as the sinner, but as a man who had learned to love selflessly. Harry Steward, Elias whispered, his voice trembling. In this life and the next, I vow to love you right. Will you marry me again? Harry stared at him, the same man who once ruined him, now looking at him like he was the only salvation left in the world. And for the first time in years, Harry smiled. A soft, genuine smile that made Elias's eyes glisten. Yes, he said simply. Let's be foolish again, but together this time. Their wedding was 2 weeks later, a luxury event glowing with white roses, chandeliers, and quiet laughter. When Elias marked Harry that night, the world felt reborn. The mark glowed faintly on Harry's skin, a promise that this time, love wouldn't hurt. Their marriage was blissful, filled with sarcastic jokes, stolen kisses in the kitchen, heated arguments about who loved whom more, and laughter that never seemed to end. The past no longer haunted them. It only reminded them how far they'd come. As for Rowan, 2 years earlier, Harry had broken their engagement gently. Rowan? He'd said softly. You deserve someone who can love you completely. That person isn't me. Rowan had smiled through his tears. I know. You never really looked at me the way you looked at him. True to his word, Harry introduced Rowan to someone, a bright, golden-haired alpha named Miles Turner. Miles was gentle, goofy, and everything Rowan needed. The two clicked instantly, and within months, they became inseparable. Sometimes Harry and Elias visited them for dinner, laughing over stories of the past that no longer hurt. Months after their own wedding, Harry discovered he was pregnant. He'd stared at the test in disbelief for nearly 10 minutes before whispering, "Oh, Elias is going to faint." And Elias did. The months that followed were tender chaos, Elias fussing over Harry constantly, forbidding him from lifting even a teacup. Harry, of course, ignored him every chance he got until Elias began working from home just to watch him. Every night, Elias would press a hand over Harry's growing belly and whisper, Thank you for giving me this second chance. When their child was born, a boy with Harry's soft brown eyes and Elias's black hair, they named him Soren, a symbol of forgiveness and rebirth. Because both of them had learned that love, when healed, could bloom even from ashes. That night, as Elias held Harry and their newborn son in his arms, he whispered, voice breaking with emotion, "This time, I'll protect you, even from myself." Harry leaned closer, tired but smiling, his hand resting over Elias's heart. "Then maybe," he murmured softly, "we can both be reborn together." And as dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in crimson and gold, their story, once drenched in tragedy, finally ended in peace, laughter, and a love that would never die again.